Hey there, YouTube. I want to give an update on the PeerPiper project and what we're doing to allow you to basically stay in touch effectively forever amongst your peers. Today's update, we're going to be covering PeerPiper's sort of implementation of the data provenance logs as identity. If you go back to this little thing in the middle here, my device, you have to identify it somehow. And I've gone around the boy a couple of times on what to use. And we know not to use public keys as identifiers because they can change. People lose keys. You want to rotate them. So what we did is settle on the data provenance logs as a way to track keys and keys update to give you sort of this identity. So I'm just going to walk through what we've done with DAP logs today and so on and so forth. So in order to have key provenance, you need to have some keys. In order to make some keys, basically, we use Argon 2 with a username and password to generate a key if you don't have one. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And you can see here, this is creating your sort of log, your identity. And I can add key value pairs to this identity once it's created. So let's just go ahead and create it, basic one. And so now this is my, what they call Vlad, a verifiably very long-lived address. What this means is this is the static part. This is the part that doesn't change. If you're familiar with DIDs or decentralized identifiers, this would be the non-public key version of that. So instead of giving someone a DID, you would give them your Vlad. Hey, find me at this Vlad. The Vlad doesn't change. The Vlad stays the same. So I can go ahead and add my sort of GitHub user, Doug Anderson 444, and update the log, and it'll add that key value pair to my logs. Now, anyone who's tracking my Vlad can now see, oh, you're on GitHub, and this is your GitHub handle. All this code, by the way, well, most of this code, I know all the PeerPiper code is available on GitHub. It's all open source. Everything I'm going to be walking you through today is all there, and I'm iterating on this provenance log. The cryptid ID guys are working on something called Better Sign. I'm doing a web-based version, so I kind of nicknamed it Best Sign until they're all merged together. There's some different underlying technologies that I'm using that differ from Better Sign, so I just kind of had to name it differently just to keep it track. But the idea is this Vlad gives you this, like, what number to dial. So that's the very long-lived address. So now that we've got that, this is all in the browser. This, you can see, actually, I have the console log open here. If I go over to the indexed DB, which is a data store in the browser, you can see that my provenance log is actually saved right there in the browser. It's local, but I want to connect it to other people. I'm not an island. I don't live by myself. I want to be able to publish my Vlad and my data provenance log or DAP log everywhere to other people. So we're going to have to do that. So what we've got, luckily for us, is I've got a little server here that's running. Again, so this is the PeerPiper technology. It's basically libp2p with some opinions about what transports to use and how to connect everything together. It's sort of like an, out-of-the-box solution for libp2p. So I've started that server here. And so the neat thing about the internet is I can actually publish my IP address and my transports and my port to DNS. And so that's what I've done. So I actually have that server running on my laptop here, but I published my IP address to Cloudflare. So I can just go ahead and connect to DNS address /peerpiper.io, and it's going to grab my laptop address from the DNS, and it's going to connect my browser to my server at home, essentially. But this could be, in the cloud. It could be on a VPS. It could be anywhere, really. And I'm using WebRTC to connect because this way I don't need a DNS name in order to run the server at home. I could paste the big, long, ugly multi-address in there, and it's going to connect anyway. So now you can see if I kind of go back to the server, it's pinging back and forth, which means my browser and my server are connected. Fantastic. So now that we're connected, what I need to do is, let's say I'm also on Signal, Doug A444, I'm going to add that. So now that I've got a new plug, I want to publish that. And so what we're going to do is when I update the log, it's actually going to send the Vlad to the server right over here. If we scroll down a little bit, you can see that the Vlad is now on the server and it is publishing it to the DHT. So if you look over here, the Vlad and the CID, the content addressable content identifier of my data provenance log is now stored on the Amino DHT, which is sort of one of the implementations of the IPFS DHT. So now anybody else who's also connected to that DHT can take that Vlad and look at my plug and then pull it down. So now, wait a minute, that's just the Vlad to the CID. We also need to have the actual data provenance log, the actual log synced as well. So I told you I had it saved here in the browser, but we're also going to need to stick it on the server somehow. But don't worry, there's a solution for that as well. So what I did was if we take a look at the best sign code here, I actually built a little plug-in here. And my cat's probably going to walk in front of the, yes, say hello to everyone. Hello, everyone. I've got a plug-in for best sign that says, okay, when you receive a request, what we're going to do is we're going to handle that request by, if the Vlad is pair verified, we're going to write the data for it to our hard drive, which is fantastic. So now if you go back to the PeerPiper server, you'll see, if I can get this to line up properly, you'll see that that's exactly what has happened. If I go over here to the server, you can see here and here and here, we actually have the same Vlad. So you see how it says HOH1MSJK la 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 la. Well, that is our HOH1MSJK. So basically it saved the Vlad as the file name, and it took the data provenance log, the log, and put it as the text. Just go back to here and we try to open up one of these. It's going to give us some lovely binary code, which is basically the ones and zeros for the data provenance log. Cool. So what does that mean? It means that I've essentially created an address, an identifier. That's the Vlad. Hey, dial this to follow me. And then I've created the log to go with that, and someone's knocking at my door. Oh, where was I? All right. So what does all this mean? It means that I can create an identifier in the browser based on just a username and password. I can generate a log where I can add information to it. I can add key value pairs. I can add new keys, different keys. I can connect to the server and publish all that information. And then anybody else, and those servers actually connect to each other in a mesh, right? If you understand how IPFS works or libp2p works, it's essentially a mesh network. So my node can connect to your node, can connect to Mike's node, can connect to Dave's node, connect to Cam's node, and all of the nodes propagate because we're all sharing the same connection. So as long as we're all connected, you're going to get the updates of my Vlad, you're going to get the new CID, and because I've saved the log to my server, I can provide that to you whenever you want to request it. So all that part still needs to be implemented on the front end, but the basics and the essentials are already laid, which is fantastic. So I hope that gives you a nice little overview of where we're at. Obviously more to come once we get there.